there's a lot of activity going on outside in front of the chamber still regarding the Peshtilakai Angels awareness on for awareness about drunk driving. Um, and I have a lot of our colleagues out there. We're waiting for more individuals on the line to make a quorum this morning. So let's give it about another 5 minutes, colleagues, and then I'll go ahead and I'll call the meeting to session. We did ring the bell though here in the chambers or outside the chamber. So again, good morning to everyone that's online this morning. Thank you very much for being with us. Most importantly, thank you to all our Navajo constituents listening in to the spring session of the 24th Navajo Nation Council 2022. Today's our third day, and we will be starting on legislation 0209-21 this morning. So again, thank you. About another 5 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Again, good morning, colleagues.
Good morning, Speaker. This is Delegate Charlene Silverman.
Yeah, this is Delegate Brown. I'm online. Thank you.
Delegate Smith wants some amendments to 02.
Yeah.
09, but I haven't gotten the support of the document yet.
Good morning again, colleagues. Let's go ahead and get things started this morning. Again, we do have, this is our third day of our Navajo Nation Council, our 24th Navajo Nation Council Spring Session. Today's date is April 19th. Are we recording? We're good to go? We're good. April, oh yeah. Sorry, I lost the date. Wednesday, April 20th, 2022. Oh, today's my granddaughter's birthday. The time now is 10:21 a.m. On day 3. Call this meeting to order. Again, we are here in Window Rock, Arizona on the Great Navajo Nation. This is a via teleconference. I do have my colleagues here in the chambers too as well. I have Honorable Edison Winika here with us this morning. I did see Honorable Paul Begay, Honorable Madam Chair Charles Newton, Madam Chair Amber Crotty, Honorable Otto So, Honorable Wilson Stewart. Thank you very much, colleagues, for being here with us this morning. We'll go ahead and continue on down. Presiding is myself, Seth Damon, Speaker of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. Let's go ahead and get a roll call, and then we'll go from there. Again, good morning to everyone listening in.
Good morning, honorable members. Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Elmer Begay did not answer roll call. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr.
Key Allen's present.
Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. answered roll call. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay is present.
Honorable Paul Begay is present. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Nathaniel Brown did not answer roll call.
Delegate Brown is present.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown answered roll call. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton is present. Honorable Amber Canespa Crotty. Honorable Amber Canespa Crotty. Honorable Amber Canespa Crotty did not answer roll call. Honorable Speaker Seth Damon is present. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr.
Good morning, present.
Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. answered roll call. Honorable Mark Freeland.
Good morning, I'm present.
Honorable Mark Freeland answered roll call. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona did not answer roll call. Honorable Jamie Henyo.
Good morning, Delegate Hino present.
Honorable Jamie Henyo answered roll call. Honorable Vince James.
Delegate James present.
Honorable Vince James answered roll call. Honorable Rick Nez.
Delegate Rick Nez is present.
Honorable Rick Nez answered roll call. Honorable Carl Slater.
Delegate Slater, present.
Honorable Carl Slater answered roll call. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
Our officers are not
Present.
given.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. answered roll call. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. is present. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Otto So.
Otto So is present.
Honorable Otto So answered roll call. Honorable Charlene So.
I'm present.
Honorable Charlene So, answered roll call. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Daniel So did not answer roll call. Honorable Eugene So.
Oh, Constance Carol.
Honorable Eugene So answered roll call. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. did not answer roll call. Honorable Edison Winika. Honorable Edison Winika is present. Honorable Edmund Yazzie.
Yeah.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie answered roll call. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair.
Delegate Yellowhair is present.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair answered roll call. Going back up. Honorable Almer Begay.
I'm present.
Honorable Almer Begay answered roll call. Honorable Amber Canesba Crotty. Honorable Amber Canesba Crotty is present. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona did not answer roll call. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Daniel So did not answer roll call. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. did not answer roll call. Speaker, you have 21 members present, including yourself.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nutta. With that, colleagues, we have 21 members present this morning. We do have a quorum. So with that, just as a recap, colleagues, we did on our agenda conclude with a started off yesterday under new business item number A, legislation 0232-21. That legislation was actually referred back to an application committee. And then legislation 0002-22, which passed by a vote of 23 in favor, 0 opposed, and speaker not voting. And then continuing on to new business, actually, that was the old business. And then new business item number 11, legislation 0208-21 was actually voted on and with a vote of 17 in favor, 6 opposed, a speaker not voting, motion carried on that. We did close out and went into recess after that last night about at 5:15, colleagues. And now we are on under new business B, legislation 0209-21. And this legislation is a 2/3 legislation. It's sponsored by Madam Chair Amber Crowley, co-sponsors by myself, Seth Thaman. With that, Ms. Nakai, who's helping assist us here today. Ms. Nakai, could you go ahead and read the legislation 0209-21 into the record?
Point of privilege. This is Delegate Daniels.
A point of privilege. Morning, Honorable Daniels. What is your point of privilege?
Mr. Speaker, colleagues, are we going to start off with a prayer this morning? Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Daniels, it's been known for the past couple of sessions, there was a recommendation by colleagues to state that the invocation that happened on Monday is an invocation that is one that blessed the entire week. So we've been working off of that direction, Honorable Daniels. But if you're wanting to do an invocation this morning, I have no problem with yourself doing an invocation, Honorable Daniels. I know that we had it for Mr. Morgan on Monday, and that was the precedence of us having a invocation for the entire week. Honorable Daniels?
Mr. Speaker, yes, I can provide an invocation this morning.
Okay.
Every so yakudo di yakudo yakudo shanat muslinigi kudo Bishnap and muslinigi 24th Navajo Council, staff, executive branch, legislative branch, judicial branch kudo arun ke got it I kudo ta in nation kudo isya kudo washing hand was da kudo ti kudo ashin kin so not the hallo or hit sort of the hallo washing be shiga hanot edol kudo Bezondo les hon man hat plan Bezondo les hon jona esitra Bei hon dana dit an la hon Ekja na ho santin ben hikenat glad ko jona esitra Ado na kodo Ekja na ho man hat plan Ahwitje na ka na shil na ka dita is kai Ado na ho na kleda an lo Anna is kai kodo. Be ena me nana dole. Hoda tanane kezi benebi nana. Na nationane me hona. Besma ha anna. Kodo spring session kodo. Dago. Spring session kodo dam. Yena nationale ege besma ha hana jagi. The mobile kanya dadon lege da in nation hina national negi. Nchada hoshiado lechidi na nosleni hon. Gelta hon sodo les hon. O sade hon. Sadiada ege ben gelta hon sodo les hon. Et sad na o ka sad dat ege ben gelta hon sodo les. Dado nan ho. Hajo elche yat ben gelta hon sodo les hon. Sadiada ege hon. Juno belche yel tito les hon. Ho dan hina lechidi nis nan hon. Biste nan hwe. Hone be sendlen ge hone hone be gejena ini kato les nan hone adonana mi na di na hone mi yazene len hit sune le hone shide na machine hone gejena ini kati benebi nan hone adonana hone atawi ago hone ta na wa go hone ko ya dat ego hone khabs ta hone sodo les so ti hone ados kan ade wich hone ko ya dat ego hone As Twitter funny the hard tango hona. But I drop by at the hona, I drop by the invent the hona. While Chinica, the day either home by Chindashi and the dark case hona. The habit on a sodo les at Twitter funny in Lenigi elders. Al Tunhaja unknown hard day enough than hona. But don't Lenigi home beyond his not out that season the hona. You just unknown hard day enough than hona. Arun Hassan, a benda that not I dig Hayden Lahona. Bananas and not eat Lehona bananas and not banana shin. Not in Nish Argel or Chenin Lengi Ultra bananas is Hona. A slap baha. So Ecuador has in for a Hona Benny Zin Lahona. The Hash Chinadon on a twin Lend of Fan in Lengi. The Hibetrai Honate Lahona. A Benny Zin Lahona. Adonan hona. Galchen lengi hon. Bada hashia hona. Bada hajo bayel to hona. Hona to hajo bada in zenes to hona. Yat ego idesh tra yat ego hona. It is sleeping dan zenes to hona. Yat ego to ho kos. Den set kes gedan don hona. Gade nossen hona. Adol le hona hi you hadil ahn la hona. Ado jen len hona. hon jona boy hona banana shade ido let hona shabasa ma sodo let hona arun hebet khai honi tlonge is to hona khada job ba yes to hona to as ko be we ni e de hona was ko jo hon ba otani let le hona anti kes de hona ado ayel pije de hona ba otani let le hona ot ende na kilta hona sodo let hona sto ado na hona vi ke hon zel eden de ha khani de hona ada job ba yes to hona isi ke adan de ha khan le hona adi chimpa da hodil to dole adi ji ada yat en da dotle mi het hunda do ni mi het ran na da do ka es na de ni ka dole ado na na ho sai pa da job ba ya hona be jedan es kai ben sekes be da edan la hona ben sekes da nes kai lo hona e do hona se anda iste mi het anda iste la hona het ook gewoon een keer bezielen het dan geen of zijn gewoon een keer verkeerd bezielen het dan geen of zijn gewoon hij gaat niet mee door les gewoon zijn nog niet mee door les gewoon wat hij gewoon voor de nige gewoon een keer ben niet door les die ben niet na gewoon aronan keer last gewoon le gewoon als toch gewoon weet je bekend die keer nog als zijn het dan ga de zien bananen ze dit het gewoon aan de land daar krijgen la hon de tra da kai banana je de hon a hui che ban si ke a hui che hon ke ken e an la hon na khabar ta hon so hon khabar da ya ba ta da kai hon shiri na sein hon aron ke la da hon a hui tle banana je de hon a hui che ba chne e ta da da di ka tan la hon na ne si ke a yu da bot ni da han la hon بعدين شيء ده حل هون ابن أنا خبأ ده حل هون شدي أنا مسلين هون خبأ ده حل كسر لاون لنجي أو بعدها جواب باي هون ده ليش خارج شيء بتاعي جيد شيء هو ده شيء ده نسكي صدق ده إيه هون بعدين ده خبأ ده حل هون في كان ده كيدن لهون قارنا هون لو أي في هون بنيل مهن ليدا هون ميجي تصل الزنبي يجي هون att ända dit kämpa benedni då läsona galchna tanla då abi dat ego precis vid ända hit la hona så bara ha jobb ba ya hon khabta hon så hon khaba da hliya khabta anda kan khabta hada bishriyan an hlini hona arona hona الفن لني ده هون بكا jobb ba init sen hona I see hon det stedet och nyjordan la hona och att ända koja akhwal så كده تلقى نيش كدونا قايدا ولا فدا بسيطة دو كدو هون كده تلقى شين شو هت إيش هون تيجي تنا كده تلقى شو هت أربعة تها كيس هون هذا هو نانا فن لنجي هون هون لدي كيس هت أدوشي هون نصنع آت إيش هون نصنع كم نصنع نصنع شين نصنع جول دات هون به هون نجنا دولش به تنا هنتي بلش به خاتيل هنا تلاشن لنيك ده هون بتجي أنا هذا تلش هون بيا يا تيه ناس نادي خاطر لش تو أجا أدونا هون بس هذا باي شو هون يا يتنا راح كده هون إيرون خبر ده هون شلون خبر ده شيء تخيل ده هلوني ده هون أجنا تيجي هون إيرو هون هذا بعدين زين هون خبر ده هون شو هون أدون شيء هون نصاب كايني تايدا هون نخاطا هالشيا نخاطا كاني جهادا وتاي هون أكون شهدي هون فرزنيكي هون ينجب النيل ميت ولا هون أرو ألف خزيب أون دنيت لهون عشان سوي هون شاتي هوت إيه لهون ويا أرو لا ده بالله بابا هيت لهون أرو بكين فهات كذا ده هيت لهون أرو نان إيه ده مغانتا ده دوت عشان لهون هون دارا خدا نانش ديليان لهون أرو ديج نانش ناديل مهجي هون جنو دا ديل نيل هون ديج أرو نان ديج دا إدوش فون جنو زداش فون جنو قوي هون بيش كين ناد نيك هون خدا إن هذا خشيا هون خدا إيجو دا هون ينفعه كوس ديج دا هون نانش جيل فو ديل نيل إسكاودر فو نانش ديل نيل هون أرونان الناد حزتي تان لهون تهويس آجو هون نن هذا إزميلي ده هون جت هذا تازي هذا نادي خدولش هون ويجوا ينتهي هون توصل جلسة جولة إيجو هون بعد هوت إيش هون بديش كذا ده أشوف هون وهوت إند اللي هون بتجدان كتزيلو دان هي نص هون شو بيش ما أنا لينجي هون بتجدا بتزيلو خادي نص نات أني دان لهون نات أني شين خدا هصلي ناز نغيت خا ناز ملتا بنغا هون تخا ناز ملتا لهون ببنان دان لهون لاند بورد أجدو كلبسي نانا هودو subcommittee that the hello added planning and zoning the hone economic development the hodai عشان so not on the hello to add نخبا ده هشيان to add نانا هون ده هون واقو هون هون خبا ده هشيان هون عشان فوي هون هذا إدم ليش بخوا بيجي ده هون بعد دم لهون أولا بهذا بعد حد إنجي بعد دم لنجي هون جنون نادا كلارو ليش هون ده هون واقو جنون هون تون نادا كارو ليش هون جنون هون نادا تلكيكو ليش هون تيان يا تيجي نادا كلارو ليش هون أرونا هون وطلع بس هذا إلتهن لهون إيده هون زودا كيست أوي هون بانسي كيس هون نات أني نيت لنجي هون أد نبنا هذا هون أرونا هون وطلعنا لنجي هون أجدو هون نأو كان ليش هون أرونا هون كيف بيجي خاطر إن ليش هون أجو هون Native American Church إيده هون نأو كان ليش هون بعد إند كده نجى نخاطر هالشيء هون سيدنا حسين هون أرونا هون أرفضه هون أدين هيك هزون دولش أدين تهنفو زيده هون تهن صوده هون أشين سبوي هون تيجن تهل هون أشين سبوي هون تهل تيجن هون فتن أفدي شيء تودن تون تهاز يج هون شو بين تحت ده هون هيك هزون دولش هون أرفضه هيك هزون دولش هون هزون هاسلين دولش هون هزون هاسلين Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Daniels, for that prayer this morning, and thank you to everyone on the line. Honorable Daniels for the blessing of the council, blessing of this day, blessing for the discussion, most importantly, blessing for the Navajo people. With that, colleagues, again, earlier I did a recap of where we're at today and where we're going to be starting off on. So let me go ahead and go back to Ms. Nakai. As I indicated, we are on item number B under new business legislation 0209-21, sponsored by Madam Chair McCarty and myself, Seth Amon. With that, Ms. Nakai, if you could read that legislation to the record, and then we'll move on from there. Again, good morning, everyone. Yate.
Yate Bene to the Honorable Navajo Nation Council. We are on legislation number 0209-21. It's a proposed Navajo Nation Council Resolution 24th Navajo Nation Council, third year 2021, introduced by Amber Canespa, prime sponsor, co-sponsored by Speaker Seth Damon, tracking number 0209-21, an action relating to the Budget and Finance, Resources and Development, and Navigated Committees, and the Navajo Nation Council, allocating $68,025,000 in citizen funds for the Navajo Nation Department of Water Resources to complete 12 water connection projects across the Navajo Nation, and approving the quote 2021 water connection projects expenditure plan in pursuant to 12 NNC section 2501 through 2508. Per Navajo Nation Council Rules of Order Rule 9, legislation has been read into the record by electronic voice recording. Included in your packet are the internet public review documents that are attached. The first report does not have any comment supporting, opposing, or any recommendations. The Budget and Finance Committee report has a due pass without amendment with a vote tally sheet. Then the Resources and Development Committee has a due pass with no amendment and a vote tally sheet as well. And then the Internet Public Review document has a second report with one resolution from the Nahatazzi Commission governance. And also other correspondence that was received is included in the third report, the Internet Public Review. There are 3 more comments that are included, written comments, and then the fourth report has 3 more written comments as well. And then finally, we have the 24th Navajo Nation Council Nabikiatiit Committee Report, which was passed and referred to the Navajo Nation Council with a vote tally sheet. Mr. Speaker. That concludes the reading.
Thank you very much. That, colleagues, on legislation 0209-21, this legislation.
Point of privilege, Speaker Damon.
Thank you very much. Ms. Nakai again. That, colleagues, this passed Nabi with 20 in favor, 0 opposed. Is there a motion?
Motion, Halona.
Honorable Halona. Is there a second?
Stewart.
Honorable Smith, Vice Chair Smith. That, colleagues, any comments, questions? Are we ready to vote?
Speaker Damon, for the record, I'm on the line.
Good
Yes,
morning,
Halona.
Honorable Halona.
Thank you.
That, I have a question for Vice Chair Smith. So with that, let me turn the floor over to Madam Chair Amber Crotty. Floor is yours at this time. Is it? Madam Chair? Oh, we can't hear you.
Thank you, Speaker. I appreciate the time and opportunity, colleagues. Thank you, Shiaz, Delegate Daniels, for your prayer, setting the tone for this council, and also to recognize the Peshlakai and Bryant family that have joined us at the council today with their effort for Angels Against Drunk Driving, and to recognize the support that this council is providing for the family and their efforts to advocate for additional sobriety points across Navajo Nation. I know as a council, we continuously support our public safety, law enforcement, family, and with the work of now hearing directly from the Peshlakai family, who after 12 years is still dealing in this pain and grief. We continue to help them through prayer, and with this council, we can just do straight talk and just action. So with that in mind, Speaker, we did get a unanimous vote at Nabikiatiit for legislation 029-21. Thank you, Delegate Halona, for the motion, and second by Vice Chair Smith. This is allocating CEJASIN funds for the Department of Water Resources to complete 12 water connection projects across Navajo Nation, and approving the, at the time, 2021 water connection project expenditure plan pursuant to Title 12, Section 2501 to Section 2508. Colleagues, you're very familiar with these water projects. Last year, there was legislation sponsored by Honorable Paul Begay for the Western Waterline Project. In that legislation, there was additional waterline projects that were attached. Unfortunately, last August, President Nez and Vice President Leiser used their line item veto authority and line item over $200 million of water projects that could help and benefit our Navajo Nation people. When we read the memo in terms of what was needed, by no means, there's no debate that these water connections are needed. what the president and vice president requested was for additional information. Working with Speaker's Office and our Legislative Council, we asked the Executive Program Department of Water Resources to find and provide those documents. So they have been able, and you'll see them attached as your exhibits. This will cover the partial listing that was line item vetoed. We will need the help of other delegates to also identify the other water projects that are eligible for CEJASIN funding and continue to support one another as we bring water to our communities. And so, Speaker, at this time, this legislation does speak for itself. There's also a provision on page 5 of 5. The CEJASIN shall be reimbursed in the amount allocated in this legislation from the prospective funds available to the Navajo Nation from any and all state and federal sources, including congressional appropriations under the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, other COVID-19 related relief, and other applicable federal laws or appropriation. Speaker, so I just want to make sure, colleagues, that that's the feedback that I received. We have received and provided all of the necessary documents. And so I will just want to stay mindful of the time. And so I'll yield back the floor. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair Cardi, for that presentation. So with that, colleagues, let me go ahead and go down on the floor. We do have Vice Chair Smith in the queue at this time. Vice Chair Smith on legislation 0209-21.
Morning, Speaker. Not Ashnand Adam Finnegy, with Festival Tossing. Okay, another for the this morning. So there's an Aida with Ashwitza. Kushin not Nana, Ashnand Adam Finnegy, Kota Sadahit I Das Sozgi. The head Lash Mayashdi, Nachaya had 2 bend of the show. Should all hashing so a high niche kedo later into Mina say Toro and not at the my Tore a thought so to snow call a with inch kid a minute straight and reserve my time.
That Vice Chair Smith, 4 minutes and 22 seconds on reserve time. Honorable Vice Chair Smith, the amendment. Do you have that? Staff doesn't have that amendment.
Speaker, the amendment's been sent to me by Melinda Arvizus Siaco. It was sent at 10:13 this morning. I was copied to you, Speaker, and Chief of Staff.
What?
Speaker, this is Ms. Bobroff. I need to address the council, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Barbara, go ahead on the amendment.
Thank you. So Ms. Arvisa Siako did indeed draft an amendment for Raymond Smith, but as I have identified to all of them, that amendment that Melinda drafted is not legally sufficient. I've requested additional documents. I have not received them. Once I receive those documents, then I'm probably about 20 minutes out from completing the amendment. Thank you, Speaker.
So there is no amendment ready. All right, Honorable Vice Chair Smith, what Ms. Siako sent to you is not a legal sufficient amendment as indicated. So there is no amendment ready at this time. Vice Chair Smith.
Thank you, Speaker, for that clarification. Are they working on the amendment for the 0209-21?
The amendment documents are still needed from NTUA in order to make the amendment. So once they get that information from NTUA, then the amendment can be made on Vice Chair Smith. With that, colleagues, moving on down then, Honorable Keon Begay, floor is yours.
Can you hear me? Good morning, colleague. I don't have a problem supporting it. The only thing is that in a way it's misleading to say that the water line is for across the Navajo Nation. Basically, this particular funding water line connection is only most of it along the Navajo, Gallup Navajo water line that's being constructed from the Farmington area, from Shiprock area to Gallup. When RDC made a tour of the construction, it literally is as far as the Gallup water line benefiting the city of Gallup, leaving out similar situation that Ms. Crowdy is trying to help our Navajo people. Later, water settlement several years ago. And I believe that if that's the case, that we were misled. And I think that we really need to look into, because the whole funding should have been taken care of by the federal government with the water settlement. Now we're kind of like helping the federal government with the shortfalls of the funding that they should have been had funded this particular project. And I don't believe it's just only this amount. I'm sure it's more than that, because I know at the end from Gallup to south in your chapters, Che, Ado Kujugo, Nor Ado in the Church Rock area, Ado Kujugo, west to go into Window Rock. And I believe that the Navajo Nation really needs to take a look back at the settlement. What did the Navajo Nation settle on? Coco, if it's just going to benefit the city of Gallup and leaving out our Navajo people, I really believe that that's a serious concern that I think we need to bring up. So with that, Chairman, let me go ahead and get a response and see what either Mr. Jason John or the Department of Water Management or Water Resource to get a response on what the actual settlement was, or even the BIA. I don't know if Mr. Mahoja is online to provide us an update about the Navajo Gallup Water Settlement Act. So if not, maybe I'll do that through the point of privilege, Mr. Speaker, so reserve the rest of my time.
That. Thank you. Say Honorable Kalambier. 1 minute and 43 seconds. Colleagues, at this time, I don't have everybody else in the queue. Any other further comments or questions on the main motion before I go back to the sponsor for response? If not, Madam Chair, Karati, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. Colleagues, I appreciate the questions. I know Vice Chair Smith has been adamant at and advocating for water projects at the Budget and Finance Committee, and we do welcome and will continue to support water projects to be funded through CEJACIN and other funding available. There are other projects that are available and ready to be funded. And I agree that if the council can prioritize how we want to fund these projects, we can move forward in getting the next legislation ready for summer that would include some of the additional projects that currently do not have the information to be added to this amendment at this time. Speaker, I just want to remind the council that this was submitted and approved by council last July, last summer session. And so I think in terms of how we move forward, this was line item vetoed by the president's office, and he requested additional information, and that has been provided on this legislation. With the question regarding what is the federal responsibility of the Navajo Gallup water settlement, that's an important question that leadership should have access to that information and be able to understand that settlement. So there's portions of that settlement where Congress has approved the federal responsibility in the main structure or the main trunk line. In the water settlement, Navajo Nation through NTUA and the Department of Water Resources, working with a technical team that has different federal programs, state programs. There's also a portion that Navajo Nation is responsible for. Just a little bit of background in terms of how the nation, through our CEJACIN back in 2016, we allocated funding for water projects for the lateral lines and to access water to get into NTUA water lines to replenish the lines. And in that CEJACIN legislation, there was federal responsibility, these SDS projects, but we utilized Navajo Nation dollars. So there has been a point where Navajo in the past has done it, has helped with the federal responsibility. I want to be clear with this legislation, this is not the federal portion of the pipeline. This is the Navajo Nation portion in terms of bringing the water from the trunk line. These are the lateral lines that will connect into the NTUA system, and so that the communities can have access to this treated water per the water settlement. It is also very important, colleagues, that we utilize the water that's in the water settlement. We've been on a few executive sessions with the Water Commission, in the Resource and Development Committee, and we've had follow-up meetings at the Water Commissioners meeting. And as we spoke in executive session last week regarding the water rights unit for DOJ, that our water rights continue to be challenged in this time of drought. And so there has to be any way that Navajo Nation can utilize their water. This is the time to do it, and we have to build up this infrastructure. I do want to apologize if my comment had said that this will assist Navajo Nation wide. So I do apologize for that, but I think in terms of this help, that's not me, Speaker. This helps the plan, the Navajo Nation water plan, and as the Western pipeline that was funded and approved by Council last summer, this is a phase of the overall Navajo Nation water plan. The Department of Water Resources has a lengthy number of water projects, and I made a commitment that I would assist any water projects that need to be addressed and that can be properly funded. And so I'm remaining to that commitment and continue to try to help my colleagues across Navajo Nation meet their water needs. So thank you, Speaker. I believe I answered the question, and I hope that this council can continue to support these water line projects. The state of New Mexico has helped with some funding, also in terms of what is available from the federal government. They do have a shortfall, and I know Speaker Damon is working with colleagues on that issue. To my understanding, Congresswoman Fernandez was able to secure about $60 million through congressional appropriation for that federal responsibility of the water settlement. And so I think I appreciate the conversation, and I would ask delegates, how could we help? How could we get your projects ready to be funded? And that's why we're here at council, and we would also like to provide any additional information that's needed when it comes to water. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. That response. So let me go ahead and continue on, colleagues. I don't have anybody in the queue at this time. Madam Chair,
Speaker, point of privilege.
Charles Newton,
Yeah.
I can put you in the queue. Point of privilege, Honorable Keelan.
Speaker, point of privilege. I'd like to request the BIA, Department of Justice, and the Water Management to provide a summary report or response on the Omnibus Public Land Management Act of 2009, Title 10, Part 3, Public Law 111-11. And in there at Section 10601 is the location of the water, the Navajo Gallup Water Settlement Act. So I want to know if why this particular part of the settlement wasn't part of the bill. Kudo public law had niniki hit ala ado bihit so the la ilabena me what shortfall, because like I said during the time of debate, I mean, how the council supported the legislation. I mean, the legislation was that every Navajo along this particular pipeline will be connected. So that's my point of privilege, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Keelan Begay. With that, the question goes back to getting those individuals on the line. I don't know if we have Department of Justice on the line from the Water Resources Department or from, then I don't know if Mr. Jason John is on the line.
Speaker Damon, this is Jason John.
Good morning, Mr. John. I don't know if you want to answer that question.
Yes, Speaker. The water right settlement agreement was a long process where the Navajo Nation negotiated at every turn all of the water rights that were included in the settlement agreement and a lot of the projects that were also funded. Keep in mind that there was a lot of other proposed projects that were being discussed to be included in the water rights settlement, but ultimately parties could not agree to fund everything. Some of this played out in the public. There was an article at that time that talked about how the completion of the NIP project, those costs were too expensive to include in the settlement negotiations at that time. And so that's one example of a project that was proposed to be included in the settlement, but ultimately the cost was too high. Other times where costs were too high for the congressional folks to support, everybody, I think, recalls what happened with the 2010 Arizona settlement, where the Western Navajo pipeline was too expensive. This is after the Navajo Nation Council voted to approve that settlement agreement in Arizona in 2010. When it went to the congressional folks at that time, they said they could not support it because of the cost. This is a similar situation with some of these turnouts. There are also other things to consider at that time. And the fact was that there were not a lot of studies to go into detail how the water would be distributed at that time. The Bureau of Reclamation had only completed an appraisal level analysis of the project, and that is what the cost of the Navajo Gallup project was based on, was an appraisal level report. There's a series of other reports that they would have had to complete before they would have felt comfortable with the number, the cost estimate. And that next level would have been feasibility level analysis of the project. That would have looked at into more detail exactly where all the turnouts would be, the sizing of the pumps, the connections, and all of that detail. But because that would take several more years to complete at that time, the appraisal level analysis and the draft environmental impact statement at that time, those were the best available data that we had on the cost of these projects. And so that is what the Navajo Nation supported. We've had many discussions with the Bureau of Reclamation about this project as it's been going through the design process. So we basically went from appraisal level analysis straight to design. We totally skipped the feasibility level analysis for this project. We went straight from appraisal level to design work, and that's what we've been doing for the past decade on this project. There was a comment made that the city of Gallup is the only one benefiting from this project. We need to remember that the cutter lateral is already completed of this project and is already delivering water to many of the homes in the eastern part of the project area. And that there will be, under the current construction of this project, there's a lot of Navajo communities that are already in alignment with the San Juan lateral, and they will receive water as well when it's completed by reclamation. That includes State Benito. That construction along 264 will begin this summer. We will see a lot of work going on between Yatehe and Black Hat and towards State Benito to build that trunk line over to State Benito, just adjacent to Winter Rock. We're also going to be completing the Crown Point lateral, and all of those communities, especially Crown Point, will be receiving Navajo Gallup water when it's completed. I don't want to spend too long with the response, but I'll go ahead and stop there, Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jason John. Is there any further comments that we added on from Department of Justice?
Mr. Speaker, this is Michelle Brown-Yazzie.
Yes, Ms. Banyazi.
Yes, I apologize for getting on the call. I guess when Mr. John was speaking, and I am now on the call. It sounds like what he provided may have answered the question, but I am available if there's any further questions regarding the water rights question that was asked earlier. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with that, colleagues, let me go ahead and go back to the floor. I do have Madam Chair Charles Newton in the queue. Madam Chair, floor is yours.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you for the explanation, Mr. Johns. I guess I'm trying to figure out how these projects are, how they got through the process and they were vetoed is what I understand that was explained. And my question is, are these projects eligible for ARPA projects? And I ask that question because there has been arguments about being equitable for all of the delegates. And then just last week, there was an argument made about how we shouldn't be piecemealing the ARPA legislation. And so I'm hearing two different things. I'm hearing that this project should have already been included in the Gallup Waterline project. And I think that is a very valid question, is why were these projects not included? And that's what I want to know is, why, why was it vetoed by the president if there has been a push to try to get people connected to water? And then two, why was it not included in the original agreement? And I do have to apologize, colleagues. This agreement was already in place when I became a delegate. So I feel like I'm kind of getting pieces of this deal and what it's doing and how it's affecting the communities or how it's helping the communities. But in all honesty, I don't think we've ever been given information about this project. And so I just want to know, I think the same questions that are being asked right now, which is why was this not included? Thank you, Speaker. I reserve my time.
Thank you very much, Chair Charles. And with that, reserve your time at 3 minutes and 9 seconds. Moving on down, I do have Honorable Elmer Begay in the queue. Honorable Elmer Begay?
Speaker,
Yes.
Speaker, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, Speaker, Chawet, other members at the Navajo Nation Council too. I thought you had to, so I thought today you don't Miss Delegate Crowley though. You have to, I thought Mr. Jason John on the line. I have a question regarding the amount of money that's being requested. Because this is CSN funds. I believe that these funds are allocated for the benefit the people of the whole Navajo Nation, away from Page, Ritchie to Toron, and then from Shiprock all the way to the south of Natachi. So so it's a lot of money going to one district. I think, and then also that I don't know how long the schedule of this funds or the construction of this water line is going to be. Maybe there should be a timeline, actual timeline. And then also how much expenditure will be going to each phase like that, but there'll be, I think that's what we want to see, Mr. Jason John. We haven't seen any projects like that. The reason why is that there's a lot of funding that was appropriated back in the 23rd Council using the CSN funds and then also the permanent trust funds. They're still there and not even moving. So we want to know that how these money should be scheduled to have a time frame, how these should be appropriated. Another thing too that understanding that I'm not sure if this water line or this project, I know that we just go by SDS, the sister survey. It doesn't mean that it's construction project ready. There's a survey. And I know that the IHS does this in SDS, which can be about 10 years older. But they still have it. Nobody goes out there and to make sure if the homes are occupied or who lives there now again. Nobody does that. So I believe that I think we have to coordinate that. I would say IHS, is there any recommendation supporting this project? And then also if they're part of the water line is being construction funded, or what's the is there any planning that they have a pending projects that they have? Usually they would have that. They would say that this is almost ready, and this is a certain percent that is ready or to be competitive project. So I don't think I've seen any of those kind of reports or data on this legislation. So I think if we could get a better idea, see what the see see if the project is construction ready or project ready, and then also from there, I know that LHS they don't do the bathroom addition, and then we have to know if the chapter has any funding for bathroom addition. That will be by maybe a full report from them too. So that will be a better understanding of the whole, how long and the schedule of expending that $6 to $8 million. If they have a more understanding about this project. Speakers, that will be my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Elmer Brigade. With that, let me go ahead and go back to the sponsor for a response at this time. Madam Chair Crotty, I'll turn the floor back over to you.
Thank you, Speaker and colleagues. So I will send out the Navajo Gallup Water Quarterly Report. That is sent out on a quarterly basis from the Water Department. And so I'll follow up and send that out to the Navajo Nation Council delegates for more information on the quarterly progress of the Navajo Gallup Water Supply Project. I'm going to go to my page. So Chair Charles Newton asked in terms of why these projects were line item vetoed back in August of 2021. The council, or if the staff can send out it's CJY 3921. And so this was originally the Western Agency Pipeline. That's the only project that was not line item vetoed. In addition, the Navajo Department of Water Resources, they currently do not have a building. And that was one of the line item vetoes. So as a nation that's trying to provide water across Navajo Nation, our department with our experts who are fighting for our water and implementing water projects do not have a building. Their building is deemed condemned, and all of their records that help with water rights settlements are now being housed in other locations. And so there was a request if they could get a building, a warehouse, a mechanic shop, and a library. So that was line item vetoed at $8 million. These projects for Navajo Gallup Water Supply Project Connection at about $52.9 million. The Halchita to Kienta Water Supply Project at $130 million. The Loop Delcon Pipeline Phase 2 Loop to Delcon Water Supply Project at $18 million. The Alamo Project that included the community upgrades at $9 million. The Alamo Spring Well Connections at $250,000. Alamo New Well and Treatment System at $1 million. So those were all line item vetoed, and the response was that there was not enough information provided on the legislation, and that it was simply a project listing. But that project listing originated from the Navajo Department of Water Resources. And so with the request from President Nez, we worked with the Department of Water Resources to provide in this legislation exhibits from his executive water department program. So that is what this legislation represents. Are these projects ARPA eligible? Some of these projects have been identified in the former legislation 0257-21. not all of these projects were identified. And that could be when I requested why not all of these projects were on the ARPA listing, it was, well, I'll let Mr. John respond to that because what I would say is just hearsay. So he could, Mr. John, if you can answer that question. And this water settlement was in 2010. And Mr. John can also help any questions or summary. Hopefully that quarterly report provides a good guidance in terms of what we're doing. For Delegate Begay, Shania, the amount in the Sehasin, we now do have from Sauter Miller historically how the Sehasin has been used in water projects. We could pull that up and send that out to all of the delegates so you can understand or see from the origins of Sehasin how much water has been allocated to the districts that you represent. And I appreciate your comment in terms of the timeline because of the projects being stalled either at Sehasin or the Permanent Trust Fund income projects. Yes, this funding was for these other projects were in 2016. And that is a reflection of how difficult it is to develop projects on Navajo Nation, the right-of-way process, the leasing process, the biological clearances. And so what the project managers are saying, they need the funding to start the process because it takes some time to get funding approved. And when they're ready to move with the projects, then they're faced with shortfalls. But I definitely would support any internal reform that we can do as Navajo Nation to expedite the project development. And it looks like there's great news, Delegate Begay, from your community that you've been able to secure the funding for the Luce Delcon water line project. So I appreciate all of your advocacy and getting that for your community and building up your healthcare center. That is a great way to and best practice for other delegates to get water into their communities. We could provide some additional information regarding bathroom addition. Our chapters have submitted to the DCD portal on approximately their bathroom addition listing. They also have it on their Indian or their ICIP listing. So each one of our chapters across Navajo Nation has passed ICIP plan, and we hope this year in the budget process, the Division of Community Development will develop that 5-year plan for Navajo Nation so that we can make sure the priorities of the chapters are being included in the budget. Thank you, Speaker. If I could defer to my agent or Mr. John with the Department of Water Resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, let me go to Mr. Jason John. There's some questions directed towards your office. Mr. John?
Yes, thank you, Speaker. I'll try to answer the question again about why these projects were not included in the water rights settlement. And there's basically 2 reasons. One is the level of study and reports that were available at the time that the settlement was finalized. This Navajo Gallup water supply project was only completed at an appraisal level study by the Bureau of Reclamation, and that was what was part of the environmental impact statement that was completed at that time. If we had more time, we would have been working with the federal agency to complete higher level reports, feasibility level reports of the Navajo Gallup water supply project, and that would have brought out a lot of other details that were overlooked in the appraisal level analysis. That is one reason why some of these connections were not explicitly part of the settlement. We were not able to complete these connection plans until a lot of the design work by the Bureau was being completed within the last 5 to 6 years. And we completed these connection reports, preliminary engineering reports, back a few years ago. And that's where these costs are coming from. So that's the technical reason why some of these costs. And at that time of the negotiation, the federal agencies and the state were looking at these settlement costs, and they wanted them to be backed up by reports and analysis. We were able to not only fund the Navajo Gallup water supply project through the settlement, we were also able to get funding for irrigation rehabilitation for the Fruitland, Cambridge, and Hogback irrigation systems. So that work is ongoing right now as well. We were also able to get funding for conjunctive groundwater development in the amount of $30 million. And so some of these connections could potentially be funded from the conjunctive groundwater development plan. And some of these are on the list, but like I said, the conjunctive groundwater development plan had congressional allocation at that time of $30 million. And then we also have the trust fund in the amount of $50 million. That is part of the settlement. And that trust fund could be used for some connection plans as well. But what we are realizing as part of the Navajo Gallup water supply project is that there's a lot of other costs that have to be paid for. One of those things that really nobody realized at the time was the operation and maintenance costs. We knew that there would be some O&M costs that were pretty high based on the water treatment and lift of water from the river uphill toward the Navajo Nation community, city of Gallup and Window Rock area. We knew that the O&M was going to be expensive. So we've been working with Reclamation on how to address these O&M costs. As part of the operation and maintenance costs, we are just within the last few months finding out that the Bureau of Reclamation is requesting a large amount of funding for the Emergency Reserve and Replacement Fund. And so some of that trust fund money, the $50 million that I talked about, that could go toward these connection plans. Some of that may be needed for the Emergency Reserve and Replacement Fund that the federal government is requesting that money be set aside for operation and maintenance replacement costs in the future. And right now, those are a very high amount, into the millions of dollars, just for the Cutter lateral. For the Cutter lateral project to be transferred to the Navajo and Navajo Nation and NTUA to operate, we have to set aside money. And I think NTUA is trying to negotiate that amount down with the Bureau of Reclamation, but we anticipate we may need to use some of that funding from the trust fund for things like that. And the trust fund plan will be coming to the Navajo Nation Council for approval later this year. So, so those are just some of the insights. We've had several leadership meetings with the Resources and Development Committee discussing some of these issues at length over the past year or year and a half. But I know the details are very very difficult to comprehend and understand. You have to hear it several times over to try to understand all of the components of this water rights settlement and the projects that are ongoing underneath it. We, right now it is April of 2022. Moving on to another question about the timeline. Some of these projects were, they are basically eligible for ARPA funding. But right now we are in April of 2022, according to the ARPA guidelines, any funds have to be encumbered or spent by 2024. So that's about 2 years out. Most pre-construction work to get projects shovel ready take easily anywhere from a year and a half for a very small project like a well drilling, up to 4 years to complete all the required documents for construction. There's I do not think under the current framework that the Navajo Nation has that we could complete all of the necessary rights of ways, the design, all the permits for some of these connections by the ARPA deadline in order for it to go out to bid as well and have a construction company selected and have the contract completed for construction and the funds encumbered within 2 years. That would almost be a miracle within the current Navajo Nation system because there has not been very many changes to the way we do business for construction of waterline projects on the Navajo Nation. So in the other legislation for ARPA, now all we see are costs. These projects are in the new ARPA legislation, but only for pre-construction activity, not for construction. And a big reason of that is just because of the tight timeline that we are talking about here for ARPA expenditures. I hope that answers some of the timeline questions for some of these projects in this legislation. I'll go ahead and stop there, Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. John, for that insight and that explanation. With that, colleagues, let me go ahead and continue on back down to the floor. I do have.
Speaker.
Or did you want to respond? Continue to respond? Let me go back to the sponsor, Madam Chair Crotty.
Thank you, Speaker. I apologize. I did have one area I did not answer from Delegate Begay in terms of the observation on the amount for one district. So tonight, this is actually different projects that will help six legislative districts on Navajo Nation. So roughly a quarter of the Navajo Nation. So I just wanted that clarification that this is not simply water projects in my area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Karate, let me go ahead and go back to the floor then. I do have Honorable Jimmy Yellow here. Good morning. Honorable Yellow hair. Honorable Yellow hair, going twice. Honorable Yellow hair, going 3 times. That, moving on down. Honorable Paul Begay, good morning. Floor is yours, Honorable Begay.
Oh, yeah, there's been a speaker stuff. I know 24th Navajo Nation Council. I know she had wanted Sabe Tanahari Ning, so it's Honorable Delegate Member Canespa Crowley. She had, it is our hope as Navajo people that someday all of our people will be able to have access to water. Same with electricity. But Sheva Hinson, Achago Navajo, Western Navajo Pipeline, when Diego A. Bishmasa and nothing be Shabella something. For phase 1, when Diego A. cut the Inish, Macon, Hidia Acho A. at ICAgo, Toben Hitch and Nahoti. So your Diegi uranium out to the natural yacht. Not glossy that you yacht. Of course, she also know equally. They had this door here in vision. Another sort of Ado Celeste, Secretary President Ness, Vice President Lizer, the Kaila, because the NATO Yashin. Archibald. We had my brother, Honorable Delegate Elmer Begay, we do a connection that united the article. It's the Higgy Archibald and Shaston. Yield the rest of my time to Delegate Elmer Begay.
Thank you with that. Honorable Elmer Begay, 3 minutes, 11 seconds. You good? Go ahead. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Speaker. I don't know that Delegate Paul Begay. I don't continue my questions regarding the on this project. I think Speaker, I'm not sure. I think we need to know there's hundreds of capital projects that is funded by the council from the prior council, and at this point in time, it seems that nothing's been done. They're not completed yet. So adding more projects is just like adding to another backlog, and then also down to the pipeline. So I think there's been from the nation, they haven't given us an accurate account of these projects that are funded yet. I think maybe the members of the Navajo Nation Council, maybe we should ask for an accurate report of these projects and the status before we could start putting more projects on the line. Maybe the speaker down, maybe I don't know who we could ask, maybe OMB or OOC and Division of Community Development to give us an accurate report of what projects are still on the accurate accounts of these projects, maybe the status of it too. So maybe I could ask for that information and then maybe ask for that report. Maybe we could look at it and then from there we can continue with this project. So this then lastly is that I think what's going on is that the